Welcome to the Distance Kitchen, where we put a little heart into everything we make. Today we're going to be working with yeast, and we're going to be looking at how that leavening agent works. We're going to look at the different kinds of yeast that are available and what you can do to help speed up your time if time is an issue for you with what you're making. So today we're going to be working with making some soft pretzels. And so if you look at what I have here, I have our sugar, yeast, water, flour, salt, sugar, and oil. That's all we need to make this. And so the first thing that I need to do is to check my yeast to make sure it's working, and that's called proofing our yeast. I need to take a cup of water, and I need to check its temperature, and I need to get it in a certain range. And the recipe that I'm using says to get it between 90 and 100 degrees. For the yeast that I'm working with, I know that I have a window of up to 110 degrees with it still working fine. And so I'm going to be looking at that, and I'm good here on my temperature. All right, so I have my yeast right here, and I have the sugar already there. So you can see that in the bowl. And what I want to do is add this water. Now, if I just add all of the water at once, what sometimes happens is that these little granules of yeast will just go everywhere. And I like to just kind of get them all mixed up a little bit before I add all of my liquid. And so let me just do that a little bit more and just kind of get some of those into more of a paste. There we go. That's exactly what I want. And now I'm going to just stir in the rest of that water. And I want to get the yeast off my spoon too, and you can see that right there. That's going to do me no good if I take that with me. So let me just get that all mashed up in here and mixed in. And then we're going to set our timer here in a moment. There we go. Get that yeast in the water. Okay. And I need to set my timer for 10 minutes. I can check it in about 5. And let's just go ahead and set this on and get it going. All right, so I'm just going to move this over here for now. The next thing I need to do is to take a large bowl. And in that large bowl, I'm going to add 2.5 cups of flour that I already have measured. And I just want to remind you, when you are measuring your flour, remember how to do that. You spoon it into your measuring cup, and then you level it off with a straight edge. Do not pack your flour. All right, to this, I need to add some salt and some sugar. And we want to mix this all up, because when we add our yeast mixture to this, we want our salt and our sugar to be all mixed up. Better incorporation. The oil we are not going to add right at the moment. We're just going to set this aside. And I'm just going to move these right here. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about yeast. All right, so there are different types of yeast that you can buy. The most common is the active dry yeast. It looks like this, and it comes in this form in a little packet. It also comes in jars. And with this yeast, it'll state right on the package, as with all the yeast, what the temperature of your liquid needs to be. And for this yeast, you do not want your temperature of your liquid to go over 110 degrees. If you get your liquid too hot, you will kill the yeast. So we have an active window between 90 to 110 to activate our yeast. So we need to have our liquid warm enough to activate, but we don't want it too hot to kill the yeast. So that's the active dry yeast. Another common yeast is the rapid rise yeast, and it works a little bit differently. It's faster, and it's so that we can reduce the time that we're using or that we need to make a product. With this yeast, in order to activate it, you need to have a temperature of at least 120 degrees. And your window of your temperature needs to be 120 to 130. So you need 120 degrees to activate the yeast. If you go past 130 degrees with your liquid, you will kill it. A very common form that the yeast started coming in after bread machines became very popular. You could get it in a jar. And if you see here, it says that it is bread machine yeast. It's the same yeast as the rapid rise. They just labeled it differently to appeal to a wider audience. But again, both of these, 120 to 130 degree temperature liquid to activate your yeast. And then the newest type of yeast that came on the market is this one, and it's called pizza crust yeast. All it is this yeast with a different label. And right now, this is really difficult to find in the grocery store. It's the most difficult to find. So this is like gold right here because you just can't find it in the stores, or just not as easily. Again, your temperature for your liquid, 120 to 130 degrees. If you don't get it hot, if you don't get your liquid hot enough, it's just not going to activate your yeast. If it's too hot, you kill it. So just be aware. Another thing I want you to know, and I don't think you're going to be able to see this, but I went ahead and wrote on the back of this one. Only on one of these packets does it tell you the temperature that your liquid needs to be. Once you use that packet, you have nothing on the back of the other two to let you know. So I just take a ballpoint pen and I just wrote on here 120 to 130. That way I can keep track of it easier. And when at school, if I'm doing different recipes and I just need to use one packet here and it happens to be the one with the temperature printed on it, I have it written on there because we're using a variety of yeasts at school. All right, we're going to come back in a few minutes and we'll take a look at what we're going to do once our yeast has finished proofing. All right, so we have our nice little foamy yeast, which means that it has proofed. We need to add that and the oil to this flour mixture. It asked us to create a well. And I just want to make sure that we have all of our yeast out of here. All right. And we're just going to mix this up. And this is where, depending upon the temperature inside your house, your humidity level, how well you did with your mixing, as to whether we will need to add any more liquid or any more flour. So let's just see what we get here. And this is not a quick bread, so we really want to stir this and work our dough. Complete opposite of when we were doing our quick bread unit. If you recall, we did not want to do too much mixing with quick breads because that makes them tough and dry, whereas just the opposite, to have a nice elastic dough, we absolutely are going to have to work with this. All right, so what we need to do is to take this mixture and we're going to put it on a floured surface, and we need to knead. We need to knead it. All right, so kneading is when we're going to be working with our dough and incorporating a little bit of flour, but we don't want to put too much in here. So I just went ahead and put this here. And I can bring more of that flour in if I need to. All right, this is a little sticky, so I do want to add just a little bit of flour in here. Okay. All right, as I look at this, I can tell that I'm going to need a little bit more flour here. All right. Ooh. Okay. Just get a little bit more here in case we need it. All right, here we go. Time to start kneading our dough. Right now, you're just working your dough. And you want to get all your dough into that. And I'm going to pause this camera for a minute because my microphone has come loose. All right, so I have added a little bit more flour to this dough. And what I'm doing is I am bringing this dough towards me and I'm pushing down and away with the palm of my hand, and then I'm giving this a quarter turn. Bringing it back towards me, pushing down with the palm of my hand and a quarter of a turn. And that's what kneading is. And the recipe says to do this for about 7 to 8 minutes. And you can tell, I'm sure, from the earlier dough where it was just so sticky and sticking to the countertop and my hands, that we have a much better dough now. There's a difference between it being just too sticky where it's sticking to you and your countertop versus having some tackiness to the dough. You want some of the tackiness. You want it to have some stick, but you don't want it to be sticking to you or your countertop or your hands. So you can just work a tiny bit of flour in if you still have too much stick, but you do need some. If you get rid of all the stick, then you've got too much flour in there. So we're going to just work this for about 7 minutes, and then I'm going to put it into a bowl right over here that has a little bit of oil put in it. I'm just going to put enough oil in the bowl to coat the bowl, and then when I put the dough in, I will put it in, I will give it a little turn, and I'll flip it over. And that's so that we can put oil on both sides of the dough, and that's needed in order to allow the dough to rise. If we don't do that, the dough can't rise correctly. It'll get a hard crust on top. And what we want to do is we're going to put this in that bowl, and we're going to let it sit about an hour until this dough doubles in volume. In fact, I think we could probably go ahead and do that. So I'm just working with this dough, and it just feels really good. So let's just take a nice look at that dough. And I think I do need it a little bit more. So we'll come back and I'll show you adding this to the bowl. All right, so I've kneaded this dough about 7 to 8 minutes. And I'm going to take it and put it in my bowl that is greased. I'm going to give it a little spin, and I'm going to turn it upside down, and you can see the oil that is on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover my bowl with some plastic wrap, and then I'm going to tuck this in a warm, rather, not a cool, but just a draft-free area for about an hour or until it doubles. And crazy weather today. I was wondering why my dough was so sticky and why I needed to add extra flour. And we checked. We had to turn the heat on because it got too cold last night. And with that, we have a humidifier that comes on, a humidistat, and it puts some extra humidity in the air. And so our humidity was too high. It was at 50%. We need to drop our humidity in our house. So that would explain why I had a very sticky dough and I had to add more flour. So now that we have that taken care of, and we're going to put this in a nice draft-free area and leave it for an hour and come back, and we should see that it doubles in volume. So I'm going to get a good picture so you can see what it looks like now and then the after. See you in a few. Welcome back. Oh my gosh, isn't that dough just beautiful? You can just see how it has risen. Oh, just great. So what we want to do now is we're going to take this out, and you can see that it has deflated, which is what it needs to do. And now we just want to take our dough, and we're going to divide it into 6 or 8 pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to cut it into fourths, and I'm going to just cut each of those fourths in half. And that's going to give me my 8 pretzels. All right, so I know some of you have really been missing going to the mall and hanging out with your friends, and maybe going and getting those mall pretzels that are just so yummy. I really want you to try this recipe because it is just great. So what we're going to do is we just dust our surface very lightly with flour, and we're going to take a piece of that dough that we just cut up and we're going to roll it out. And if your dough wants to spring back in like it's doing, if it's just really doing it a lot, you don't want to fight with it. You just let it rest for about 10 minutes, and then that will keep that from happening. But look at that. That's just great. All right, so this is what we do. We're going to take this piece of dough and we're going to turn it into a U. And you know what? I want to take this out just a little bit more. There we go. All right, I'm going to move this piece of dough so you can see this. We're going to make a U, and then we're going to come up here, and we're going to just cross it over once, cross it over again, bring that up, pinch that together, and there we go. We have one pretzel. Just like that. We're going to put those on our cookie sheet. So, woo, we've got one right here. And let me just put this over here for now until we're ready for our next step. So, we're going to take another piece of dough and just roll it out into a snake. And if you look at the video that I had for you and the assignment to do, you will see where they are doing this and how the chef just uses his counter, and if he just needs to put a little dust with a little bit of flour, he does. And boom, there's another pretzel. Don't they look great? Oh my goodness, this is so much fun. Okay. Dough piece number 3. And then what we're going to do is I have 3 tablespoons of baking soda in a baking dish. And then I'm going to take 2 cups of really hot water and add to that. When I have my pretzels shaped, I'm going to dip them into that baking soda and water mixture. And what that does is it gives your pretzels a nice soft interior after you bake them, but it helps preserve that nice crusty outside. And there we go. Just put a little bit more there. And so that really helps with the baking process. And when you're baking these, you have a couple of options. If you like those salted pretzels, you can sprinkle the top with some kosher salt, and that will give you the salt. And I know that in our family, I like just a little bit of that kosher salt. I don't like a whole lot. My husband doesn't like any of that salt. So if we get one of those pretzels at the mall, I'm scraping off salt. He's scraping off all the salt. So you can make it, you can tailor them for your family. Here we go. We need to roll that a little bit more. There we go. Okay. Take this, cross that over, bring it down. Oh, they're gorgeous. Another option you have is you can take these pretzels when they come out, you can coat them with some melted butter, and then you can sprinkle them with cinnamon and sugar if you wish. So just give me a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and get my water ready, and we'll come back. These will be all shaped and ready for the next step. All right, so here we go, guys. We have our pretzels shaped, and what I'm doing is I'm taking some really hot water, 2 cups, and I am mixing it in here with 3 cups of, no, not 3 cups, 3 tablespoons of baking soda. Oh my gosh, that would have just been a disaster if I'd done 3 cups. And so what I want to do is I just want to get this baking soda mixed in here. And then this is the water bath that we're going to put those pretzels in before we bake them. There, that looks much better. And so I'm not quite sure what's gonna work best for picking these up, because remember, this water's hot. So I'm gonna take 2. All right, and I wanna make sure that both sides are getting nice and wet, because this is what's gonna help us to get that nice store-bought pretzel. And put it back on here. And you know what? I wonder if this one will be better. Let's try it. Oh, maybe not. Give it, whoa, put that on the tray. Quick. All right. And so we're going to do this with the rest. Let's try just using our fingers. Why not? Maybe that would be better. Because some recipes say for your dough to be in the water for about 30 seconds, but this one does not. Whoa, here we go. And actually, I think that worked the best. Well, now we know. So look, I just experimented for you guys. All right, dip, drain, put them on the baking sheet. This one was the last one, and I re-rolled it. I overworked the dough. We'll see how it comes out. It's still going to come out. It'll be fine. It might not be quite as soft on the inside as the others, but that's okay. It'll still taste good. Give it to your younger brother or sister. All right, here we go. Last one dipped. Over here. Look at that. All right, let me just wipe my hands here. And now I'm going to sprinkle some kosher salt onto these. And when I do this, I can also just kind of check my shape out, see if I want to do any little adjustment on those. And again, if you have people in your house that are not fans of salt, you don't have to put salt on all of them. So I think I'll leave the salt off of those over there, since I have somebody who's not the biggest fan of the salt. And there we go. So we're going to go put these in the oven for, I think, 8 minutes. Pull them out, and then we're going to top them off with some butter. Oh, wait till you see these. We'll be right back. Oh my goodness, it smells really good in here. Look at these pretzels, guys. All right, so what I have done is I took some butter and I melted it, and now I'm going to just give these a nice coating of butter. A nice little butter bath. And they will soak in. They won't taste greasy because the butter is just soaking right into that dough, and they'll have that really nice buttery taste with that nice balance of the salt, the kosher salt. Oh, this is great. At this point, if you wanted to use the cinnamon and sugar, you would have it mixed up, and after you coat these with the butter, you would then sprinkle your cinnamon sugar on, or dip them in and turn them, however you would want to do that, whichever you would. I'd be careful about just taking them and dipping them in. I think you'd have to see how much cinnamon you have. If you don't have too much cinnamon, that would work just fine. But oh, look at these. Aren't they just gorgeous, guys? Oh, yummy. Okay, so let's take these off of our pan. Oh my. And let them cool. And then we'll put them on our plate for serving. The one thing I do want to let you guys know that I don't think I mentioned in the video, it has to do with your yeast. Every package of yeast has a date on the back, and it lets you know when you need to use this by. And if the date has come and gone, your yeast needs to go. You can't use it. It's not going to work. Why take all this time to bake something to just not have it turn out the way it should? The jars of yeast also have dates stamped on them. The other thing you need to be aware of with the jars of yeast, or even if you get one of the bags of yeast that is like, I don't remember if it's like 2-pound bag, when you get those, or these jars, you can put them in your pantry. But as soon as you open them up, when you're done using it, you need to put them in the refrigerator. And it tells you on here, refrigerate after opening. If you don't do that, you're killing your yeast. Remember, this is a living organism, and we keep it alive by the temperature of the water or the liquid that we use. Remember, we can kill it if our temperature is too hot, or if it's not hot enough, it's not going to activate. But absolutely, pay attention to the date. Once you open those packets, or the jars, you gotta put them in the refrigerator. Oh my, it is time to just put these on the plate. They're ready to go. Let me just move this out of the way. Oh my gosh, look at these. This is our non-salted, and this is the non-salted pretzel. And then the rest of these have been salted. Now, if I weren't plating these for the video, I would let these cool a little bit longer. Look at that. And isn't that just beautiful? If you don't want to make all of these into pretzels, you can also make little knots. And so there you go, guys. Lovely, lovely pretzels. I guess we should taste one, shouldn't we? This one's so pretty. Look at that. Let's break it open. Oh my goodness, you can see this beautiful soft crust, or the soft inside of the dough, and then that nice crispy crust on the outside. Oh my gosh, these are so good. They're better than what you're going to find at the mall. So you've got this lovely texture of the dough. Just enough salt, and then that sweet butter that's been put on there, and combined together, it is just delightful. So make these, have fun. Maybe you can pull in some of your family to help make them and make it a family affair. If not, make them for your family and surprise them. And remember, whatever you do, have fun in the kitchen, and remember to put a little heart into everything you make. Thank you so much. Go cook. Bye.